his nimble feet and his powerful arm and leading the Broncos to victory in Super Bowl 21. Let's talk football on Zenith Super Bowl matchup. Super Bowl matchup. We have a couple of fresh faces in Super Bowl 21, the New York Giants and the Denver Broncos, but a couple of familiar faces with me, and that, of course, Ali Sherman and Steve Sable. Steve, for 4 years, all we've heard are these wondrous tales about John Elway, but now that he has led the Broncos into the promised land known as the Super Bowl, we can understand some of these plaudits.
Chris, as Charlie Chan would say, John Elway is #1 son. But unfortunately, the rest of their offensive family is not nearly as gifted. But what they lack in talent, they make up for with a resilient, gritty spirit that's carried them through a zigzag season of highs and lows. I think the Broncos' only serious shortcoming is the lack of a bread and butter play. You know, something in your offense you can go to when you need a few yards, something you can rely on when nothing else is working. And the closest thing the Broncos have to a play like that is an Elway scramble.
I'm going to be at my best today. I'm not quite sure we got 45 guys who can make up the best football
in Pasadena. To say that the Giants and Broncos' appearance in the Super Bowl is a surprise would not be accurate. To say that their paths there were different. To Pasadena has been strewn with much debris, but John Elway seemed to be the shining light in Denver's wins over New England and Cleveland. The fourth-year quarterback showcased his outstanding running ability and his talent for throwing on the move as he brought the Broncos from behind in both Denver victories. Against Cleveland, Elway directed a 98-yard drive in the final minutes that helped inspire Denver's dramatic overtime win. Will it be the Broncos or the Giants? The World Championship of Professional Football hangs in the balance.
What makes him so difficult to match up against is his exceptional ability to move out of the pocket and throw on the run. That creates an added burden on any defense. On this play, the pressure of the Browns' pass rush is inside, up the middle. This leaves Elway an alley to the outside, where he can freely come out of the pocket and hurt the defense with his legs and his arm. Being allowed to come outside is the greatest pressure Elway can exert on a defense. One way to minimize his outstanding mobility is demonstrated on this play. Also against Cleveland. Again, you see Elway in the shotgun. Watch Browns linebacker Chip Banks, number 56. At the snap, Banks will not blitz, nor will he drop into pass coverage. What he does do is remain at the line of scrimmage, shadowing Elway. Banks is playing cop. He's minimizing Elway. He's minimizing the freedom of movement that he needs to come out of the pocket and pressure that Cleveland defense with his ability to improvise. Elway's options have been cut down, and with little room to move out of the pocket, he's forced to slide to his right, where he's sacked from behind. Having a linebacker play cop is a specific tactic designed to contain a mobile quarterback like long yardage. These situations reflect the true barometer of his maturity. On this play, he shows the controlled mentality and the patience to remain in the pocket rather than instinctively scrambling out. He steps up with authority and he throws to Mark Jackson, the right receiver, at the right time. Against the Giants, Elway must remain disciplined in and around that pocket. In the first Broncos-Giants game in November, he did at times demonstrate the concentration needed to make the best use of the pocket. On this play, Elway will feel the pressure of the Giants' pass rush, but he does not take off on the run. He moves within the pocket to his left to create a more direct passing lane to better deliver the ball to Steve Watson. This is the reaction of a mature quarterback, in control in the pass pocket, with receiver awareness. It must be Elway's major technique of pass execution against the Giants. You've seen how
John does this, and he's always got that smile on his face, and he's never tired. The guy's really something.
How fast is he?
I don't know, but he seems to be faster than all the guys that are chasing him.
With so much deserved talk about their Winning is nothing new to the Broncos of the 80s. A trip to Pasadena is, but like the Giants, the Broncos have earned their way here.
35-13, a great record over the past 3 seasons. But until now, the Denver Broncos have had nothing to show for it. The last time the Broncos were in the Super Bowl was back in 1978. They came, they saw, they lost. Crushed by the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl 12, the Denver Broncos will be trying to obtain the crown that eluded them 9 years ago. Only Steve Foley, Louis Wright, and Tom Jackson remain from that club. But those 3 links from the past have provided the Broncos with the leadership for the present.
You got to look at this as the last chance, because I mean, we've had good teams and been in the playoffs 4 other times and have not made it. So you never know when you'll get back to the Super Bowl.
Very few people are giving Denver a chance, and being such big underdogs has become somewhat of an irritation to Bronco players.
We've got a chance, like I said, to show people what kind of team we are. And I'm sick and tired of people trying to make excuses for why we win. And when we go out on Sunday, we're going to show people why we win.
Regardless of the public perception that the Broncos don't have a chance after the heroic comeback win for the AFC Championship in Cleveland, the men in orange believe that they can win the Super Bowl. But they know it will be up to John Elway, who is the key to their hopes.
There's a lot of expectations put on me to walk into Denver and take them to the Super Bowl right away. And I think over 4 years, I've learned that I can't try to live up to expectations. I just got to do what John Elway can do best, and that's to prepare himself prior to the game and then get out in the game and react and, you know, let things fall where they may, and hopefully we're on top.
Dan, is John Elway almost like Superman now? Does he believe he can do anything out on that football field after that 98-yard drive against Cleveland?
Well, I think John's had an awful lot of confidence all year. I don't think it just came because of a 98-yard drive. Certainly that didn't hurt, you know, as far as his confidence was concerned. But, you know, I think John also this year has learned that all the pressure is not on him. You know, it is a game that, you know, the entire offense has to do the job. And, you know, he's a part of it and a big part of it, but he doesn't put undue pressure on himself.
But clearly if Denver is to win, it will be because of Elway, the guy who looks like a beach boy but has the guts of a burglar. Chris?
Thanks, Jim. Before we talked about the Giants, Allie, and their leadership, the Broncos, I know you feel they're a very fine football team. You don't get to the Super Bowl by accident. But how do they stack up in that capacity, off-field leadership?
Well, you know, Chris, I don't think Coach Dan Reeves is as blessed as Parcells. He doesn't have quite that many balls.
The Broncos for 6 seasons, 5 of which have been winning seasons. Even so, his squad is a big underdog in the Super Bowl, but Reeves is eager for a chance to make football history.
This is probably an opportunity that'll only come along once in a while for a football team. I hope that we will be back in the Super Bowl again, but I don't know that the circumstances will ever be the same as they are this year, to where we'll be a 10-point underdog where nobody really thinks we can win the football game. You know, to me, that's a great opportunity.
Reeves' style is different from that of Parcells in many ways. But maybe when you boil it down past their moods and their dress codes, it's not so different.
Coaching is basically copying things from people that you think do a good job, and certainly some of the things that I felt like Bill did, we've looked at and, you know, incorporated in some of the things that we do. And we do talk quite often. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Bill and the job that he's done.
All right.
Take pride in their blessings of nature. They also take pride in their Broncos, who for the second time have rewarded them with a Super Bowl appearance. Today, a 20-week pilgrimage winds to its end here in sunny Southern California. You are looking live at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. 101,000 fans will gather in this venerable stadium for the biggest single sporting event of the year. The American Football Conference champion Denver Broncos meet the National Football Conference champion New York Giants. This is the Super Bowl. We are now 2 hours from kickoff, and we'll count it down with you right here on the Super Bowl today. Kurt, he can deal with this kind of pressure in a different way. They like to get out early. And there's Rich Carlos. His field goal, of course, in overtime against Cleveland put the Broncos into this Super Bowl. Now, Will McDonough has been our man with the Denver Broncos. Will, good morning to you, or good afternoon, I should say. And what's the mood with the Denver Broncos?
Well, the mood with the Broncos is they're right on schedule. Some people made a deal out of it when they got here 30 minutes late. But Dan Reeves really didn't care if they got here a little late because of these locker rooms. This facility was built 60 years ago. These dressing rooms are tiny. You don't want big guys in there for a long period of time. So Reeves said, we don't care if we get there late. All we want is our players get in the locker room, get their clothes on, get out in the field, and be ready to play.
You know, Will, that's the first example of Super Bowl experience. Dan Reeves has so much more than Bill Parcells. He kept his players away from the arena. How do you view that?
Well, I think the Giants' thing all week has been we're going to be the team that sort of shows the way here. Like Parcells was in here this morning at 9:30. Him and Joe Morris were the first two to arrive. Conversely, the Broncos' whole thing is we're going to stay on schedule. We're going to do what we want to do all the way to the ball game, and we're not going to change it.
All right, Will, we'll be checking in with you throughout. 98-yard drive that John Elway engineered in the closing moment.
He can come out of the pocket and throw a 50-yard pass. By the way, he's played here and completed 52 out of 76 passes in his college career. But Johnson and Watson are real good, great wide receivers. I mean, and they're quick. But the one thing Denver must not do, they've got to change the defense that they used against Cleveland, because if they use the same defense, they'll get killed.
Jimmy, the weaknesses with these Broncos?
Their offensive line is not as strong. So they've got to finesse and do a lot of fancy things, and what they'll do, they'll come up with a lot of trick plays, Brent. Even Elway may catch a pass.
Put it all together and give me your final score for this one.
It's very close, believe it or not, but I like the Giants, 24-20. That's what I think, and if you disagree with me, I got news for you.
These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise.
Was into instant contention. His fourth quarter touchdown pass to Gene Lang beat the Raiders 38-36. But it was Elway's hands and feet that did the damage early, as he caught Steve Sewell's surprise pass for a key touchdown. It's that kind of versatility and daring that led the Broncos to the Super Bowl and made John Elway an instant winner.
Came down to a choice between Reeves and Ray Perkins, but the job went to Perkins, who was later succeeded by Bill Parcells. Dan Reeves, no stranger to the Super Bowl. As a member of the Dallas Cowboys, he was involved in the big game 5 times, 3 as a player, 2 as an assistant coach, and what brought him to his 6th Super Bowl, that overtime win in Cleveland 2 weeks ago. It was a victory that was especially sweet for linebacker Tom Jackson, returning to the very stadium where he would watch the Browns when he was a child. Now, after 13 years in the NFL, Tom Jackson has a great appreciation for how far he has come from downtown Cleveland to his 2nd Super Bowl in a Denver uniform. Our Ann Butler has the story.
I grew up in a neighborhood my whole life, you know, kids having fun, stayed in that same neighborhood my entire life. We used to play some of the best football games in the world. It's still a good town, and there's still a wholesome feeling there for me.
Maybe if you were a kid growing up in Cleveland back in the 60s, playing football for John Adams High like Tom Jackson, it really didn't matter that the grass never seemed to grow, that there was always mud on the field. If you were a kid like Tom Jackson, you always had stars in your eyes because your biggest hero played right across town at Municipal Stadium.
I used to pretend sometimes in the snow going to get a paper for my dad that I was Jim Brown, that I was scoring touchdowns, that I was running in Cleveland Stadium. So when I got a chance to come back and play in Cleveland Stadium or play pro ball, it's kind of a dream come true for me.
Surviving 14 years as NFL linebacker and preparing for a 2nd Super Bowl might reach beyond the wildest dreams of anyone with far greater size and speed than Tom Jackson. But for Tom Jackson, there was another key to success.
As far as my dad is concerned, he's probably the strongest man I ever knew. His inner strength, if anything, is something that he kind of passed on to me. And I think that what's carried me being a little bit smallish in this league, hopefully, is that inner strength that he gave me.
I'm so proud of him. I don't know. I've been said it was too rough a game for him to continue to stay in there as long as he has. I didn't want him to see him broke up and all crippled up or something.
The real suffering had come years earlier, at age 13, when his mother died.
My mom was the one who went out with me and threw the ball around, sometimes play catch with me in the backyard. And she was just probably the most beautiful person I've ever known.
Today, then, is for all the Jacksons, for that little boy from Cleveland who just might be playing his final game.
I think certainly if we win this football game, it's a heck of a way to go out. I always dream that, you know, if you could go out on top, that's the way to do it. If we lose it, I think I could be a contributor next year to us getting back to it. It's something that I'll think about when the season is over.
78. It was the year of the Middle East Summit at Camp David, with President Carter serving as the vital go-between. Egypt's Anwar Sadat and Israel's Menachem Begin agreed to a framework for a historic peace treaty. Riots and demonstrations in Iran pushed that country to the edge of a violent revolution, but the worst there was yet to come. A Polish cardinal was elected Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. Taking the name John Paul II, he was the first non-Italian elevated to the papacy since the year 1522. Lee Iacocca was fired as president of the Ford Motor Company. He then took over as president of the ailing Chrysler Corporation and launched one of the greatest turnarounds in American business. Fans of a certain television commercial were sorry to hear that the original Morris the Cat had died. The finicky feline reached the end of its 9 lives at the age of 17. Bronco mania swept Denver into Super Bowl XII, but there the Broncos were crushed by Dallas's doomsday defense and a big play attack led by Roger Staubach, the symbol of what came to be known as America's team.
There are 2,200 members of the media here this week, all selling this game. But for some reason, Super Bowls never seem to live up to their billing. People now ask, is the league guilty? And is the media guilty of false advertising?
I don't think it ever lives up to its hype. It's almost like chasing a pretty lady, and then when you catch her, it's not as much fun as you might